Where's Oliver?
I'm running.
He's running around the kitchen. Finally.
Okay, we should be live. Live with David Lebovitz in his kitchen. Live on Facebook in the book club. Mm-hmm. Does everything seem right so far?
So far, you got those things right.
Okay, good. So you guys watching at home, usually I walk around with this camera in Paris, exactly like that. Today it's sitting over there, but we've got the laptop, so any questions that can come up, we can answer them as we go. And I'm just going to get the video up too, so that I can see exactly what these guys are seeing.
While you're doing that, I have to say your Earful Tower podcast is one of the really good podcasts that comes out of Paris, and it's one of the few. I just started listening to podcasts a few months ago. It's one of the few I always listen to. It's very engaging, and you present a different side of Paris than just the usual, like left bank, how beautiful everything is, and you go in deep, but not too deep, so that it's like, okay, got it. You tackle some interesting subjects. You've had French Girl in Seattle on.
That's true.
It was very interesting.
You're very kind to say all this, David. Now I really hope that it's recording. If it's not recording, it's so. What we'll do is, I see there's a few people just joining the group now. I'll let them in. I basically cut you short because I was getting red in the face for you.
Well, he also just approved me to join the Facebook group, the book club group. So I had to wait too. So.
Cool.
There we are.
Okay, we're live. Okay. This is excellent. We can see...
We both got our shirts untucked. Very French.
It looks perfect, right? Yeah. So what we're going to do, there's already 11 comments, so I expect that people will be commenting faster than we can read.
Okay.
And I've got them there. So now we'll keep it like that, right?
All right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to chat and we're going to interact with you guys, otherwise there's no point in doing it live. That's the whole reason they're in the book club, so that they can meet. But I think we'll do a proper introduction of why we're here and what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
And just making sure that the sound is on and everything. People are saying bonjour, hello.
Bonjour.
That means the sound is working.
Okay, good.
But if there are any issues with the sound, put them straight away so that we know and that we can react accordingly. But now that I think you and I are feeling comfortable, let's get started. Yeah, it's going to do the same thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit here, talk to you for maybe up to an hour if things are flowing right. We're going to discuss the book. We're going to get nerdy about it because everyone watching this has hopefully read it. That's the idea. We're not just going to
sit... It's a book club, right?
That's it. Okay. It's a book club. We're not just going to sit here and talk about the things we've talked about when you were on the podcast before, like favorite place to get a croissant or whatever. And you don't like favorites anyway, right?
Well, it's hard to say what's the best because, first of all, it changes a lot in Paris. And also, what's the best?
Exactly.
Like, there's so many different facets. It's like, what's the best Paris podcast? I mean, I know what your answer would be, but somebody else might.
It's an award-winning podcast, David. That's all I'll say. But what we will do is we will see your questions popping up and we'll answer them. But keep that in mind. We want it to be about the book. Nobody bother asking about favorite restaurants or stuff like that. We want to talk about the book. And we want to get into, as we talked about on Instagram, the nitty-gritty of...
Okay, well, the book's there, and I actually made you some cookies because I knew you were coming. I've never had you over to my kitchen. So I thought, well, if you just come over and there's nothing to eat, you're going to leave and tell your readers that I was an ungracious host.
I would never.
I was up at 6 a.m. making buckwheat chocolate chip cookies.
Well, it's funny that thank you very much for the lovely gesture. I think people won't mind if we or if I eat while we're talking.
The only person who might mind is your wife because these are for you to take home too. So you have to save.
She's not watching. Don't worry about it. She hasn't counted them. But there, I've got the cookies in shot. People are asking already. Cindy's saying, "Are you sitting on those infamous bar stools?" And the answer is.
We are, and we're not falling over.
Not yet. Yeah. Although we've already made one change to the bar stool before we started.
Well, for those who have read the book, you know that
everyone's read the book.
Okay, there's a whole story behind these stools, and the short answer is they're sort of fixed. Are you stable?
I feel pretty stable.
Okay.
Plus the camera's on a stabilizer, so if we're moving about, they won't even know it.
Okay. Well, like I was told in the book. If you have any lopsided friends, they're perfect.
Yeah. Right.
So I guess I need to find lopsided.
Do you have lopsided friends? Is it easy to meet lopsided friends in Paris?
I actually don't. I didn't know what that meant. Maybe I was like, well, maybe that doesn't translate.
Yeah, it works, I think. What we're going to do, I've finished what I was going to say is after David and I are going to have a chat similar to what a podcast episode would be like about the book, and we're going to make sort of intermittent stops to read the comments and to read some pre-comments from people who maybe aren't watching live because they're in a part of the world where it doesn't work.
Okay.
And then at the end, the idea is that we're going to show some parts from this kitchen that feature heavily in the book. For example, the sink. I know a lot of people want to see the sink. And I'm tempted to explain that to people, but once again, you've read the book, or you should have read the book before watching it. We're not going to spend the whole time explaining everything. Nitty-gritty. And also this island is the one from the book that you know, would need to be shifted. And what else? I mean, the plugs, the kit. I feel it's weird for me because I finished reading the book today. It feels like I'm in some kind of a dream or something. But you know,
sometimes it does for me too.
Yeah.
But here I am, and I ended up okay, and I live here and cook here. So
speaking of, may I have a taste?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'll ask you the first question while I taste the cookie.
Okay.
And it's
if you eat the whole cookie, it's better be a long answer.
I'll just take a bite. But I actually like talking of dreams. What do you find that this whole process, was more of a dream or a nightmare?
Well, it was both, because it was my dream to have an apartment here in Paris, because I'd been living here a long time, and I thought, well, I'm planning on staying here. And I was living in actually a very small apartment, which is a maid's quarters in the top of the building. And for those people that don't understand how small an apartment can be, if you live in New York, you understand. But anywhere else, it's very small. And I lived there for 10 years. And I was happy there. It was a really great apartment. It had a view of Paris, rooftop. But it was small. It was really hot in the summer. One year, it was 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's like 40 something Celsius.
Yeah, it was like, I can't convert that high because it's never, so it was pretty severe.
It's kind of surprising how many people manage to live for so long in those chambre de bonne apartments.
Yeah.
What did you say, 10 years that you were in one?
Yeah.
That's insane.
You know, you don't move in, as you did a whole episode, of course, I listened to your podcast about finding an apartment in Paris with one of your Australian friends.
Right.
It was very interesting. A lot of people don't realize what it takes to rent an apartment. It's not just like, oh, you read once again, if you live in New York, you understand.
I think we probably have some New Yorkers watching at the moment. Let us know where you're from as well. Oh, watching from New Jersey, almost New York.
Okay, well, that's close enough.
Yeah.
So anyhow, people understand how hard it is to find an apartment. I thought, well, I should buy something. I'm going to be here a while. I'm not planning on going anywhere, and I also needed more space to work. Like for me, space is not a luxury. It's something I work at home.
This is your office that we're sitting in, basically, right?
So, yeah, you're in my. I could hire you after this to help.
I get that in writing. I learned from you the.
Well, my French friends were like shocked when they saw my refrigerator, for example, which is a big double door refrigerator.
Which I think they can see the edge of it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can sort of see we'll show it to you in a bit.
33 people watching. That's pretty good for a book club.
Okay, hi everybody.
Hi everybody.
Hi everybody.
Live in a New York City apartment. There you go. Okay,
there you go.
We got Linda sitting there watching.
So Linda understands in New York a small apartment is actually can be very small. So it was my dream to have my own apartment in Paris, and you know, doing the process was actually fascinating. You know, in the book, I discuss what it was like to look for an apartment. There was a lot of stuff along the way that happened. Really interesting, going into people's apartments that are for sale, and you're just like, oh my god, you know.
I can't believe you did all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot more too, but you can't put everything in a book.
Was that difficult to decide what to cut out?
Yes.
Because you know.
Well, that's the editor.
But you know, like I've noticed something when I talk to friends about admin in Paris, which is or banking in Paris, which you mentioned in your book, both of those things. And you know, when you're talking to someone or when someone's talking to you about their admin nightmare, and you go, I don't want to hear about it anymore. I know this story, it's so bad, and I feel it. Was that difficult for you, knowing that there must be a limit where you can talk about admin going about? Yeah.
You know, it's like someone telling you their dream. It's kind of like, you know, get to the point.
That's exactly what it is.
It's like someone's like, and then I walked over this fence, and then there was chicken, and you're just like, get to the.
Yeah. You know what I think it is with dreams is if someone's telling you about their dream, if you're not in it, they're gonna have a hard time.
Also, they should just get to the parts where you're in it.
But then, you know, the other thing is, like, a dream, for me, sometimes it's not so different to a daydream, right? And you don't go, David, I had the weirdest daydream an hour ago. Let me tell you all about it. You'd be like, it's just a daydream. What are you talking about?
Well, this is going off.
We're
This is going off on a side subject.
I forgot the camera was on.
Okay.
Back to the book. Okay. So the book, and we're going to stop in for first section of live comments in about a second. But first, we'll just finish that idea of getting this sort of. We talked about it just before I pressed record. This sort of experience of getting it all into a book. Mm-hmm. Did you find it some kind of like cathartic, therapeutic thing?
I wanted to write a book of what really happened. I didn't want to write a book about. For people who have read My Paris Kitchen, it's a book about the real Paris, and a lot of French people do come up to me and they say, "Oh, we like your books because you actually talk about what it's really like here." Because Paris is a great city, and that's why we live here. But it also there's a lot of quirks to it, and once again. Whenever I do a talk in New York, everybody gets it because they're all, I was like, you understand you're New Yorkers, you wouldn't live anywhere else, but you're also like, sometimes it's, exhausting living there. So
same with San Francisco, or just?
Well, San Francisco is more paradise-like.
Because of the weather?
Well, you're not like fighting the city. Right. Like in New York, everyone, another writer wrote this once. I was reading a story about New York, and he said, well, it's sort of us against New York. In a way, like Sex and the City, they always say like New York City was like another character in their story. So here, there's actually a bumper sticker that says like, I'm Parisian, I like nothing.
Yeah.
I think it's a heart Rion. And it's funny because it's very Parisian to rail against something.
So true. I like that.
But I didn't want to do that in the book. That wasn't the idea of the book. Was not to really talk about it was a difficult situation for sure, but I didn't. I wanted to make it like there was so much absurdity. And that was why I wrote the book, because I didn't think I wanted to write a book about it. It never occurred to me to write a book about it. And then I was walking down the street. I was actually in New York City. I was like, oh. And the whole thing came to me as a story. I was like, I've got to tell this. So
that's what happened to J.K. Rowling when she was got the Harry Potter inspiration. She just sitting there and the whole story came to her. Yeah. That's what she said. She wasn't on my show. I just read it in another.
Well, the thing is, it's like buying stocks. They say, you get a lot of ideas, but the ones you act on, are the ones usually that do the best. I've had a lot of ideas, and my agent's like, no, or my editors are like, no.
It's funny that you say it, because when I was reading the book, and I'm going to get to these questions right after this, but when I was...
we're going to go 2 hours.
When I was reading it, I was thinking, because sometimes because obviously I also have the podcast and I'm telling stories about what happens, so I kind of know what it's like to have your life, to storytell about it. And when something really bad is happening to me, sometimes I'm thinking, the story's going to be good. I'll put up with it. Yeah. But you mustn't have had that feeling because you weren't planning to write a book about it.
Well, I think, there's a lot of people that write about Paris, that write about the chocolate shops, the pastry shops, and how they live in the left bank, and they have a different life, and that's their life, and it's great. And I live in the 11th, which is much grittier. It's a little more working class. I mean, it's changed in the last couple of years, of course, but it's a different life. So I write about my life, and it's much more interesting, I think, for me. And there's also this thing about authenticity now. If you look at Instagram, there's so much stuff on there. It's like, this doesn't look real.
I agree with you.
And for a while, I was actually taking pictures with my good camera and then uploading them to Instagram. I'm like, they're going to look better. I'm like, well, the whole idea is I'm in my kitchen. Here's cookies. Show them.
I love your Instagram account, David.
Oh, thanks.
I think there are people who... so I put a comment on my Instagram account the other day. I don't know, you must have seen it. And I put, go and give David a follow. He could use...
Oh, yeah.
And then all these comments were going, but David has 200,000 followers. I was like, I was trying to have some fun there.
Well, anyway. Humor... one of the things about the internet, like, nuances don't come through.
True.
So sometimes you have to do the little winky face.
You're right. You got to put the emoticons so that people know what you're talking about.
A friend of mine actually works for an online company, and they're encouraged to use emoticons in their emails for that reason.
Really?
Yeah. So I want to see more smiley. We have to start acting like teenagers again.
I think you're right.
Emoticons.
So looking at the comments that are coming through, the way it appears to be working, so I know on the camera I can scroll through all the comments, but when I'm looking at it on the computer, I can see the last 4.
Okay.
Which means maybe I'll run over to
I
the
think
camera.
you can hit 42 comments there.
It was just show the past 4.
Okay.
Even when I click it. Unless maybe if I make a big screen. That's not a bad idea. And then... that's better. Okay, we got them all.
Alright.
Okay, there's a lot of comments. I'm going to skim through them, and this is what you can do.
It's like the speed round?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Now, did you taste anything
Yeah,
weird in it? Is there anything weird in these?
Nothing weird.
Oh, you didn't taste it?
What did you put that was weird in it? Vegemite? What's...
Alright, this is a joke because the first time I met you, you gave me a croissant with something in it.
That's right.
And you didn't tell me what it was, and I was blindfolded. So
that's right.
I didn't put anything in these for you.
So
just there you go.
For full.
You feel funny later.
So what David's referring to, if you're watching this now or if you're watching a replay on YouTube, because I'm going to put this up on YouTube later, is the first time we met, which was about 2 years ago. It was very kind of you to come on my podcast then, because you didn't even listen to podcasts back then. I didn't know what I was doing either.
I just heard of the internet.
Right. But I don't know why, but you came, and I had this stupid idea to blindfold David and give him croissants filled with different things. I can't remember. I know one was a cheeseburger, and one from McDonald's. They're not sponsoring the show, but we can say that.
No.
And one was like some.
And I was a vegetarian.
I felt so bad, but when you said that. But anyway, that was the first episode. I'm going to link to it below. But we've met plenty of times since then, and now we're sitting in your kitchen for the Earful Tower book club. And quick fire round. You can either say pass if you don't feel like answering it. Or you can answer it quickly, or you can say, no, I'm going to answer this one properly.
Okay, and if we need to get up to do some answers?
I think we'll save the getting up for the end.
Okay.
Because otherwise it's too much fiddling around with that.
Okay, I'm going to let you deal with the technology and I'll deal with the cookies.
And what
I don't get to eat because I have to answer questions.
I'm going to skip, there's a lot of comments saying bonjour and hello from different cities. I'm going to skip them.
Okay.
We'll do a hello.
Okay.
For everyone. You can do a hello one and find a question.
Okay, hi Janet. No, I snuck one in.
So, a lot of hellos and thank yous. For sure, I need to see the refrigerator. We'll do that. Wow, a lot of hellos, dude. Okay, this looks like a question. So, Kerry says she's watching from New Jersey. Big fan of DL. That's you.
That's me.
She even met you at the Shakespeare and Company bookshop.
Ah, I love that store.
That's not even a question. I had La Part as soon as it came out in the US. Guys, that's a nice comment. It's just not a question.
Yeah. Okay.
And Brenda says that your German chocolate cake is her husband's birthday cake every year. It's wonderful.
I made my own birthday cake this year.
What did you make?
I made marjolaine.
What did you say? Bless you.
Marjolaine.
Marjolaine?
Yeah.
What's that?
We need to do a French pastry episode.
Has my knowledge of French pastry been...
It's a meringue cake with layers of praline cream, cognac cream, and chocolate cream.
That sounds nice.
It's really good.
When's your birthday?
December.
Okay, I'll come round in December.
Okay.
Katie Miller says, how long have you lived in the apartment now?
Gosh. Katie?
So you can, you can interpret that how you want.
I would probably say 5 years, 6 years maybe. I'm terrible with dates, so I always want to do a timeline.
When is your birthday, really?
No, I know my birthday, but I actually don't know how old I am a lot of times.
What's your guess?
I'm 60.
Really?
I know I'm 60.
Are you 60?
Yeah. 60 is like it's a year you don't forget.
Yeah, so I'm turning 61 in December coming up. Or you're turning 60?
Well, that's next year.
Gotcha.
11 years, you said.
Yeah,
11 months is not coming up.
Alright, okay, so how long have you lived here? 5 years, and she adds, and how is the underfloor heating now? This is what we want. We want some nitty-gritty questions about the book.
The underfloor heating. Well, the underfloor heating was... I actually don't want to do too many spoilers, but since people have read the book...
Yeah, hang on, stop. If you've not read the book, stop watching now. Go read the book.
Yeah, log off.
And now they're back in the room.
Okay. Well, the underfloor heating never worked. I mean, it worked... Well... once again, I don't really want to give any spoilers, but it worked almost too well, and I had to have the system disconnected and have a new heating system put in.
And so now you're on the new heating system?
Yep. How's it feel in here?
I'm afraid to say anything. I'm afraid to say anything about it's like when someone asks you how old do you think I am. You can never answer correctly. No, but everything's wonderful in here.
Okay.
I said that as soon as I walked in.
Okay.
And the heating's absolutely perfect.
Well, you guys can ask me anything.
So
I keep wanting to call him Olivier.
You're welcome to.
Okay.
Everyone in France does, and you're in France, so.
Okay.
Katie has another good question. Have you been back to IKEA since your meltdowns?
No.
Meltdowns. It was.
Yeah. Well, we had to go back. I mean, when I was doing the kitchen, I had to go back a couple of times because there's always like 2 screws they didn't put in. And of course, the screw sizes, you can't buy those. At a hardware store, you have to go to IKEA. So I think I had to go back, but I have the world's best partner. And Roman's like, I'll go back.
He came across as such a lovely guy in your book.
Well, no, he's great. But he's the hero. A friend of mine, after she read the book, the manuscript before it was published, she said, he's such a hero. He's the hero of your book. I was like, oh. You
were like, no,
and I try to explain that to him, and he doesn't understand that. So.
What's he like as a person? Let's talk about, or maybe that's private.
We have to get to the
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah. Angela, who's one of the MVPs of this book club, posting lots of good questions.
Okay.
Says renovation is the theatre of the absurd. Do you agree with that?
I think it depends. Some people have had renovation experience. They go, oh, everything was great. I had really good, the carpenters were really nice, the plumber. And in the book, I actually said, an architect told me 90% of the renovations in Paris have big problems.
Right.
And she said the other 10% of people are lying,
yeah.
which I thought was very interesting. But a lot of people, tell me they don't have problems, so I'm waiting to experience that with my next apartment.
Oh, your next apartment? Yeah. Are you going to have another apartment?
Maybe.
You wouldn't
I don't know.
renovate it. Would you renovate it?
No, absolutely not.
This book put me off. It honestly, and there were other comments in the book club that we'll get to some of them in a minute, but that idea, people were saying, I'm never going to renovate in France.
Well, people have written stories about renovating in France, and I'm here, I'm happy, I'm fine. I had a really bad renovation story in San Francisco as well, which I wrote about in the book. So these things happen everywhere. I was just visiting friends in Vietnam, and they were talking about what it's like to do any renovation there. And
similar?
Well, they said it was worse.
Right.
They're French, so.
I want to talk to you about Vietnam as well, but I'm going to skip through so many comments, guys. So, and I also want to go back to the comments that people put. Did you ever fix? So someone's asking if you've done the tour.
Do you need to approve people to others? Are the people joining? Oh,
Oh, Lena's watching now. We were just talking about my wife before.
Okay.
What did we say? Don't count the cookies. Oh dear. Is the apartment? So this is the last of the live questions I'm going to ask for a little bit. Is the apartment?
We'll get to more later.
Yeah, we're going to get back to more. But we're going to skip it. We sort of. Yeah, and we haven't done the tour yet for that question I just saw. But is the apartment another personality in your life? It's Linda that's asking that.
Not really. It was a personality in the book in a way, but it's just an inanimate. It's an inanimate object. It's my apartment, and I don't. I tend not to fetishize things, which sounds kind of funny, but. A lot of people talk to me about their cast iron skillet. A lot of Americans are like, "Oh my God, it was handed down." It's like it's a skillet. So I don't have too much fetishization of things. There's a couple of things I do love, like my original. I still have my original knives when I started working as a cook and as a chef, and those I have a deep affection for. I have a really good bottle of bourbon over there on my shelf.
And we're going to show that.
A deep affection for it.
Can we show that later as well?
Sure. We can have a drink.
Oh, we certainly can. The other things I know that you have an affinity for, maybe not a fetish, USB ports.
Yeah.
I know you like.
Well, I don't have any. So, yeah.
I know you like ice, which ice in drinks.
Americans will drink ice. My partner loves ice.
Yeah. One of the few French people that do.
Well, French girl in Seattle, Veronique.
Maybe she's watching.
Yeah, hello, if you are. Well, she likes ice too. She was living in Seattle for a number of years and just moved back.
And to Paris, right? She's going to be around here.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
She's going to be a tour guide for Rick Steves.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Good for you, French girl in Seattle, Veronique. We got so much to do, David. I think, is the kitchen large enough for you, David, says Catherine.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. Although it's not large enough for me and Roman, because he takes up a lot. He's little, he's about 5 feet tall, but he takes up a lot of psychological space.
I think I'd get on well with Roman. Like,
well, everything does.
Because he talks to people and he.
All my women friends are like in love with him.
Really?
They're like, he is the best. And he's like, why is it always women?
How does that make you feel?
I was like, fine, it's great. He's great. He's really great, and he changed. He helped me with a lot of things. Especially, he's French. He's Parisian. He's lived here all his life. His family, his parents were amazing.
Right.
His father passed away a few years ago, but I'm very close to his family as well, and they took me in like right away.
Did that help you with your in American you say acclimating? We say acclimatizing or something in Australia. Acclimatizing to French culture and French.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did, because I was part of a French family almost right away. So it was great, and having a French partner, it's very different. Your experience in France is very different. If you don't, one of the things about living in France is when I started speaking French more confidently, the whole country changed.
Right.
Because people really do want to talk to you. There's a reputation that Parisians have. They're not nice, they're not friendly, or French people. And that's not true. People will talk to you. You have to make an effort.
Right.
But speaking French is really important. Even if it's bad French, but it's such a richer experience. And you can joke, when you start joking with people, then it's just a wonderful place.
I totally agree with you. I think that's a fantastic point. All you guys thinking of moving here, learn some French and it will open up doors for you.
Or also have somebody on your, like if you want to buy an apartment and renovate it, there are companies that do search for apartments for people, help them with the renovation. Paris Property Group is one such company, and they will help you find a place or help you renovate. They have teams of construction people, and it was funny because I once read a story online about this renovation project that was wonderful. It was this beautiful Paris apartment, and on the bed they had a needlepoint pillow that said bonne nuit,
right?
And which is something you would never find in France.
Oh, right.
And I was giving a talk in California, and I was talking about that apartment. I said, well, some people have good experience. I even saw this one online, and it had like a bonne nuit pillow on there. And I didn't, I wasn't saying anything negative. Right. But afterwards, when we came, she was, that's our apartment.
Oh my goodness me.
And she was, she said, yeah, we had a really good experience. We didn't have any problems. I'm like, none a little? She's like, no, none at all.
I think two things. One, maybe, I don't know if the light seems alright for everyone at home, but I realize the light's behind you, so your face isn't lit up. I don't know if it makes any...
because I'm turning toward you.
Yeah, so I'll
turn away from you.
So that we can talk to the people and they can see your face as well.
A friend of mine who's used to be a porn star said, always stand sideways.
Why?
Because you look better. So.
Yeah, but your friend was it a man or a woman?
A man.
But they were probably naked, so it probably did make a big difference.
Yeah, well, he was like very chiseled, so...
Okay, we'll do a sort of 45.
Okay.
But so the other thing that I want to do is show some pictures. So a lot of people, in fact, we can do this now for a bit.
Okay.
So people, if you guys in the book club scroll down, and if you're watching this on YouTube later, you'll have to go on the book club to see it. But people have been putting pictures of what they've cooked from your book as we've been going along. So I thought you could sort of...
that's what I was...
3 people want to join the group. I'll let them in, right? Okay, guys, I'm just going to let 3 people into the group at the same time. Welcome to Sarah, Robin, and Isabel, who won't hear that until they watch the replay, I suppose.
Okay.
But and then we'll go back to some more of those live comments, and we've still got those other comments to go through. But here are the okay. Look at this. So a lot of these are from Catherine, who's an MVP.
These look just like mine.
Yeah. So Catherine, we're looking at. You guys can see it as well.
Nice job, Catherine.
I wonder if I can show it like that. I wonder if they can see it. I'm not sure. So what do you think? What's your feedback on that?
They look great.
They kind of do
look
quite
really
similar
good.
to yours.
Nice crystal salt, Australian buckwheat flour, similar to the French. It was very interesting because one of the things I have to deal with a lot is the difference between ingredients in France and elsewhere. And someone actually told me like a French tablespoon there's like 3 American tablespoons.
Really?
I was like, what? I was like, hey, my recipes. But I learned French buckwheat flour is very different than American because American's whole grain, whereas French it's refined. So people were writing to me going, well, my cookies are pretty dark. I was like, oh, well, they're supposed to be. They have buckwheat. They're like, well, they're like black. I was like, oh. And then I realized I did a blog post about the difference between the French and the American buckwheat flour.
That's interesting. I wonder if it's similar in lots of different countries as well. I mean, you must have readers all over the world, right?
Well, there's one in Australia.
Yeah. So here's this is almond croissants.
And where's that person from?
I think
Oh, Catherine.
that's Catherine again.
Okay.
So I mean, good job,
Wow.
Catherine. Catherine's been posting.
Catherine. You're like a
Catherine,
recipe tester.
maybe she's your number 1 fan. There was a quiche I saw.
She's number 2 after you.
Yeah, that's true. Catherine, you're number 2. I wonder if they're watching live in Australia or if the timing is. There's some pain perdu. Does that look good?
Oh, wait.
You will say yes to everything, though, wouldn't you? You wouldn't really say if something looked bad.
Well, you say so.
Here's Megan. Here's Megan's quiche.
Ah, okay. That's actually something that I was going to teach you to make.
As in teach me, not Megan.
Yeah.
That's a great name, Megan Crust.
Yeah, it might be Megan.
Oh yeah, but still, Crust for a quiche is quite a good name.
Yeah. Is
But
that your real name, Megan?
yeah, I bet you're watching Megan. But there you go. So there's David said to me on the podcast episode we did about a month or 2 ago that the quiche was one of the sort of foolproof. You know, the most foolproof thing in your book though was the jambon sandwiches.
Oh wait.
Which was like get a baguette. That was the one I was going to try first. It was get a baguette. Oh, I'll talk now while you're ready. It was get a baguette. They've all read the book.
Well, it's funny because when you write recipes in a cookbook, there's a person called a copy editor, and they come over and they say, well, how big do you cut the bread? What angle do you hold the knife? How much butter do you put on? I think in the history of the world, no one's ever measured how much butter they put on a sandwich.
No, right.
I had to.
So Catherine is watching, and she's blushing right now.
Hi. Okay.
That's great.
Well, show 'em up.
So is David, but he's eating at the moment. Oliver, show David Catherine's ta-ta-tan. Ta-ta-tan.
I saw that. It was beautiful.
There you go. I already did it.
Yeah.
Catherine, another of the... look, Katie Miller added a photo in that people are posting in the book club as we're speaking.
Wow.
Maybe it's of something that she's cooking right now.
This Facebook thing is really interesting.
It's weird for me because usually we're walking and I don't know if people realize, but you got to avoid cars, you got to film good things, you got to keep a conversation going, and you've got to...
That's why when you do Instagram stories, you're always kind of like dodging people.
You're right. That's where stabilizer really makes a big difference. Yeah. But you also got to read the questions. And so
wouldn't
now,
it be nice if we can get stabilizers for our life?
Yeah.
And just it's like calm everything.
That would be nice, actually. I'll work on that, David, for our next chat. Now, we had some questions from a lot of the book club members now are your fans who've joined specifically for you. And to them, I think it's great that you're here, but I'll also, I'll encourage, I'm just going to say a little message to them, if you don't mind, David, while you're eating. Okay. This book club, I've been doing it for 6 months as a sort of left arm to the Earful Tower podcast. And for 6 months, we've been doing books all about France in some facet. So we started with The Year in Provence. We did Suite Française. We did The Elegance of the Hedgehog. Sun Also Rises by Hemingway. And I'm forgetting one as well. Which I can't remember. Anyway, the idea is that we're trying to get a little bit more out of France by reading it as a group. So that idea, if you're new around here, is what we're going to continue doing. A book every month, and hopefully, you're the first time that I've done an author who's alive. Because I never knew if...
We're not over yet.
I never knew if it would take off and that I'd get to the stage of interviewing people. So I started with a lot of deceased authors.
Well, one of the things that's great about a book club, and when you're writing books, like I'm writing books all the time, you don't read a lot. So when I finished La Pape, I started reading again. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
And we forget about reading because we're on the internet. We're like, I'm going to check Apple News. I'm going to check this. There's so many good books out now. So a book club is a really good way to make sure that you read.
Exactly.
It's a good way to meet people too, I think.
You know the Earful Tower meetups in different cities? People that meet and discuss the books in person.
Yeah, but it's great because people find each other. That's the good thing about the internet. Yeah. Is people who have common interests find each other. And that's how, I have a food blog, And
You have a blog as well?
I do. Yeah, I just launched it 2 weeks ago. And then you have to go, will you link to me?
Yeah.
That's the old days. People would link to me. But it was, it was a good way for like-minded people to meet.
That's great, and this is what's happening, and I'm loving it. And now we've got some questions from the people who were in the book club before the David Lebovitz effect took hold and everybody joined in the past 24 hours.
Okay.
So these guys who have been around should have some of their questions heard, I think.
I'll stop eating.
So Cindy says, I'd like to see the sink in the infamous force. I think I already read that, and we're going to show that. But she adds, do you regret the renovation?
No, I don't regret it. The thing is, we all make mistakes in our lives, and we learn from them. That's why I'm like, one good thing about being in having several relationships is hopefully you've learned in the last one what not to do. Now I realize, with Romain, my partner now, it's is the fact that he leaves the newspaper on the counter all after 2 days later, is that enough to bother me? Those things might bother people, or you learn something. You learn to accept things about people, about stuff that happens to you. So I don't regret it at all.
Good answer.
I did make some bad mistakes, but I blame myself for them. And it's also, we make a lot of mistakes here. We're foreigners. We've lived, coming to a foreign country. And I always tell a lot of people, especially my partner doesn't realize that, well, what you go through every day, we have to add 20% to.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
I was being
you were being generous.
Yeah, and it's just, it's a lot of extra stuff to deal with. But then you reach these plateaus and you're okay, it's great. But it's just, it's challenging. So, I was doing this thing that was challenging, that I had this extra layer doing something that wasn't in my culture.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. I was reading it, and someone put a comment here that they just wanted to give you a big hug after reading it.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
I think that's your wife.
Could well be.
I think that was for you.
There's so many comments coming in, but I'm going to come back to them.
Okay.
And we're going to skip through maybe a kind of quick fire round again with the ones that people sent in before. And
tell me to answer quickly.
And people sometimes, one of the biggest criticisms I get is that I interrupt my guest too much sometimes.
Okay.
But I'm going to interrupt you if you give a long answer because we've got so much to get through. So guys, David said it's okay. Okay. So I've got about 10 questions and we'll give you 20 seconds for each of them. To 30.
I have a timer.
Okay. Carla wants to see your spices.
Okay.
And the leg of the table on the island that the contractors did wrong and had to fix.
Okay, well, there's no legs on the table, but we can see right behind Oliver.
Maybe we can see it.
Yeah, we can see part of the spices.
If I, because there's a bit of a lag on it, so I don't know if.
When we go around, we'll do a thing at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Okay, that was good.
We will get to it.
Okay, otherwise we'd just be walking around and we'd confuse ourselves.
Next.
Okay, how hard is it to become comfortable living in Paris? Says Mary.
That's a really good question, Mary. I think it took me 10 to 12 years to feel comfortable here.
Whoa, is that what I've got to wait for? 10 to 12 years?
But because you're doing something, you're integrating, you're doing these podcasts and meeting people. It might take some people less time. I'm not working in an office, so I'm not interacting with people. So maybe it took me that long just because who I am and what I do. I don't know, but it takes a long time. It's funny because in America, you're friends right away. You meet someone at a party and you're pals.
Sure.
It's great. Let's have dinner tomorrow. Okay. And then they don't follow through. But in France, it takes a long time to meet people. And once you do, it's a very profound relationship.
They say the same thing. My wife is Swedish, and they say the same thing about Swedes is that they can be quite cold, but once you have once they're thawed out, they'll be your best friend in the world.
Yeah, but they're kind of cold because it's pretty cold there.
People say that. The other yeah, you're right. Okay. David writes.
I should be your sidekick.
I would love to have you as my sidekick. You've got an open invitation to be on my podcast anytime you want. Angela says it's Angela Devenou, I believe the pronunciation is. David writes in his blog, I also learned that cultural differences even find their way into chocolate chip cookies, which I'll explain in another blog post. Could David tell us about one or two cultural differences in American and French culture that might be a surprise?
There difference between French and American. Well, one of them was that sort of friendliness right off the bat, whereas the French, there's a reserve. And it's not a criticism, it's a cultural difference. That's a big thing to get used to. Another thing is customer service. And people say, oh, French, there's a lot of jokes about bad customer service here. But people also don't talk about a lot. When you get someone to help you, it's amazing. And they really want to help you. And that was one thing I learned in the book. When I went to like the tile shop, for example, these guys were super nice. They're like, we'll bring the tile, we'll carry the tiles over. I'm like, well, it's like 5 blocks. They're like, we'll do it, it's okay. Yeah.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, people can be very nice here, so that's another cultural difference.
One thing that really stuck with me from when I was reading your book is the bit that you wrote about customer service in America is like the customer is king, and then here it's this idea of égalité after the French Revolution, and no one, I'm paraphrasing, but no one, they're not your servant and they're not there to help you, And I read it and I was like, that is exactly right. Yeah. These are the things that you gathered after over 12 years here.
Well, we went to the museum. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Well, I did a tangent, then you were doing a tangent.
Okay.
Melanie, I would like to see the kitchen. It's coming, Melanie. Jennifer, the windows. Angela.
I'm not showing my bedroom or bathroom. It's like nobody wants to see my bathroom.
So Deborah, who's another regular commenter, Deborah Ball, she says, my question...
Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Deborah. I hope you watch. She always watches. Deborah gets up at 3 in the morning to watch these videos, so I'm almost certain
I'll start doing that when I get up at 3.
Deborah, if you're watching, she says, my question for David refers to kitchen necessities. I don't have a food processor. Is there an alternative, or do I have to skip the recipe?
Which recipe?
It doesn't say.
I actually don't do recipe. I always assume people have a stand mixer, and if they don't, I usually give an alternative. How do you make the same recipe using a bowl? Like cookies, you can make these in a bowl. You don't need a mixer. You don't need a food processor to do a lot of things.
You need an oven.
You need an oven. Well, not for everything. One thing I do recommend, a lot of people don't have a lot of kitchen equipment. There's these mini food processors. They're about $30 or euros, and they're really good for most kitchen tasks. So I actually recommend getting one. But food processor, it does specific tasks well, like chop nuts,
right.
But you can chop them by hand.
Yeah. How quickly do you cut like an onion? Is it like crazy to watch?
No. Well, because I'm a baker, I'm not a
Not much bakery and
I don't need to cut onions fast.
What about nuts? How quickly do you cut them? What would be the most impressive thing?
Like, we have to go to the question.
Okay, here's a question from someone called Oliver. He says, as a chef, what's the most impressive thing to watch you do?
Me?
Yeah. That was my question.
Oh no!
You know what I mean? Like Gordon Ramsay chops his onions really quickly or something. Is there an equivalent in bakery that's always impressive to watch in baking?
My partner sometimes I can't think of anything specific, but sometimes I'll be making something and he comes over and goes, that's incredible. I'm like, what? He's like, you know how to do that? I'm like, yeah, it's my, make puff pastry.
Right.
Yeah, just throw. And he's like,
that's cool.
Wow.
You just think of it because you've done it for so many years.
Yeah. To me, it's just something to do.
Well, I was reading your recipe this morning, the one about making, you had to make, it was something that you had to roll.
The Queen Amman.
Yeah, because I've been to Brittany and I've eaten them before. They're delicious. They're very strong. Yeah. But I was like, you have to do it quite quickly because of the way that it all melts together. And I was thinking that if I tried to do that for the first time, because I've never done that before, I would fail for sure.
Well, I wrote in the book that recipe I never published because I tried to put it in other books. I was like, this is kind of one of those things you're almost better buying.
Yeah.
A lot of them, like macaroons. Everyone's like, how do we make macaroons? I'm like, well, in France, people don't make their own macaroons.
Sure.
They buy them. You never make a baguette in France. There's probably somebody out there that does it, but people depend on the expert to do it for them. So it's fun to do. We do those things for fun. I mean, French people also don't bake for fun we do in the United States.
What do they say? French people say when you meet them at a party or whatever, and you say, do you say you're a baker or do you say you're a cookbook author?
It depends, because if I say I'm a pastry chef, because people don't realize being a chef is kind of like being a doctor. If you quit or you retire, you still get to keep that moniker. But they're always like, where do you work? And I'm like, I don't. Or if I say I work at home, they're like,
Right.
Because the French have sort of very specifically defined views of what your job is, what your role is. So they were like, well, how can you be a chef if you don't work in a grand restaurant?
You don't fit into the box that they want to put you in.
And there's no word in French for like a home baker, as we say in English.
Maybe we can make up a word.
I mean, you can say like, cuisinier, but that's not really baking, it's cooking.
Celeb chef.
Well, but this is just like a home cook. Like if you were, you like to make cake at home. So.
Okay. I think I got all the questions that I'd written down. Yep. What do you think of the 11th arrondissement, by the way?
Well, the 11th is huge. People don't realize it goes from like Père Lachaise to République and up to Belleville. There's parts of it I really love. I love Belleville. I love that whole multicultural neighborhood. Being from California and San Francisco, the first time when I was in Paris, I remember walking into one of those big Asian superstores and I felt like I was home. It was like homesick for me because I was so used to being surrounded by all those products. Australia's like that too. You go in the I remember going to the supermarket in Australia and they had like ginger and all these things, and I said, oh, it's great, you have all these Asian ingredients. And they're like, these are all Australian stuff, and we've just incorporated them. So I love Belleville. I like the 11th over near Père Lachaise. It's a place that's, a lot of the neighborhoods aren't clear as to what they are, but there's little pockets with restaurants and so forth. And I like Rue Saumur.
I used to live near that.
Yeah.
It's such a cool street.
Yeah.
It's so cool. There's so much interesting stuff happening. And one of the fun things is you never publish where your house is, so no one at home knows where we are right now. Yeah. Only me and you.
Okay.
Don't worry, I'm not going to say anything.
That's okay.
So let's go back to the live questions and then we'll do the tour.
Yeah.
How does that sound? Okay. And I'm hoping there's some good questions coming in here. Wow, so many comments. And a lot of them are just comments.
Oh, hi. Okay.
Okay. And I'm skipping some that I know we've already
Somebody
talked
asked about the electricity. I was going to say I had it redone. I had a really great guy come and redo everything. And he was like an angel. And that's once again
the guy that you mentioned in the book.
I don't know if I mentioned him. I don't think I mentioned the guy who came and did the electricity.
Right.
But he was one of those people that was like an angel, and I still am in touch with him. He's so, like, if I have a problem, he's like, talk me through it on the phone. I'm like, so nice.
That's so cool. And that segues nicely into this comment from Francis Thomas Martin. How have you changed through the process of redoing the apartment? Specifically, how do you relate to contractors now?
Well, one of the things that came through in the book that my partner kept telling me, and other French friends were like, don't be nice. It doesn't mean don't be friendly and cordial, but it's, if you're too nice, you'll get taken advantage of.
Right.
And now I'm much more skeptical, and French people respect that, actually. They think if you're not like, you're just, if you're not checking the paperwork and making sure everything's stamped and it's done, asking a lot of questions, then you're not doing your homework per se. So
you got to earn their respect by proving that you're invested in it as well, kind of.
Yeah, but I don't think it's earning respect. I think it's showing that you are there, you're interested, you're concerned, and if you don't like something, then you tell them. Also as Americans, we're taught to be nice, and we're taught if you don't like something, go, oh, it's okay. Yeah. Which is sort of not necessarily, it's not okay. Because I watched my partner in action. We were at the museum yesterday and only 2 windows were open. Yeah. We waited an hour just to get tickets to go in, which was crazy. It was this mob. We get to the front and he just let loose. And he said, no, it's not your fault, but this is ridiculous. We waited an hour, now there's a 2-hour, let's but in
this guy.
In France, that's also not considered rude.
Right.
It's considered asserting yourself.
Which is, so I've got French friends, I've been out with them before sitting on a terrace and someone starts smoking right next to us. And the French people they're very good. Like I typically go, oh, someone's smoking next to me. Yeah. But they'll be like, excuse me, what are you doing? You can't, don't smoke in my face. And it's like this.
Really? Okay.
And I don't have the, I don't know, I feel, maybe it's a language thing as well, but But I wonder, so I was reading the book, and I know you, I've met you a few times, and I know that you're a nice person, and I wonder if, or I think you're a nice person, and I wonder if you feel that giving advice sort of to other people from America or abroad, if you say don't, if you should hold back on that friendly personality.
Well, I think it depends what you're doing. I think it's okay to make mistakes. If you go into a bakery and screw up your French, if you tutoyer somebody rather than vous voyez, which I do a lot, it's okay. You backtrack and you say, excuse me. And they're like, oh, c'est pas grave. Yeah. Or they say, it's adorable or something, if you're nice about it. Yeah. So there's certain times, when you should be assertive, and there's certain times when you don't have to be. You don't have to like boss the people at the bakery around. Yeah. But you can say like, I didn't like that. The baguette I bought yesterday, there was no salt in it. Or.
Well, that gives me nightmares thinking to say something like that.
Or something like that.
Do the bakeries in your neighborhood? They must know that you're a pastry chef by now.
Well, some of them do. Well, a couple bakeries, they know me because I go in all the time.
So they get nervous when you walk in?
No, but it was funny. There's a new one, and they said, "Can you come in the kitchen? We have a question about our croissants." And so I went in the kitchen. They were showing me all the croissants, and they said, "Well, what do you think?" And they cut them all open. And it was kind of funny because I'm standing there with these 3 French bakers who are very accomplished guys, super nice, super lovely guys, and they're asking me for my opinion, which is really lovely. Yeah. Because a lot of people also think, well, don't people treat you badly because you're American, or they're rude to you, and they don't like America? Like, no, not at all. And in fact, here are these people who are very accomplished who respected my taste.
That's so nice.
Yeah, and I'm not like, oh, I'm so flattered, but it was just very generous, and that's also longevity here. Like I've been here a while, and
so you get recognized a lot.
Well, you found me.
I never bumped into you on the street though.
I don't go out.
No, you're just renovating all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Renovation is always difficult, says Randy. Let me go to the bottom and I'll go upwards.
Okay.
Ask David if he plans to do any more book reviews.
Book reviews?
Says Paul Klein.
I used to do book reviews. Hi, Paul. I used to do them on my site. The problem is it's hard to do a book review because you have to really understand what the book is about. You shouldn't, it's like a restaurant review. A restaurant review can have devastating effects on a restaurant if you say it's terrible. And that's why most reviewers historically have gone to restaurants 3 times because before you write a bad review, you should make sure. So I liked writing book reviews, but it took a lot. And also when you give your opinion on the internet now, people are a lot more confrontational. Yeah. So you have to really defend everything you say. And I just decided not to do that. And I wrote one for a book. It's still on my laptop about 2 years ago. It was a really interesting book. Very the interesting conceit was how the artisanal food movement came to be. Because it sort of started. It was very exciting. Then it sort of became mocked in a way. It sort of became a caricature of this farm to table thing. There was a very wonderful book by Patrick Q, K-U-H. And I wrote about it, and then I never put it up because, I don't know, I guess I should.
I don't know. I think it's tough with that stuff, especially the power you wield with your large following as well.
It's not really power. It's just, also if I'm going to tell somebody to buy something, I have to really like it. Yeah. So
when I finish writing my book, will you review that one, maybe?
Depends.
By the way, apologies that I've been eating it, but it's I don't know, maybe it's rude to eat on camera. I don't know. It tastes absolutely delicious though. I've had 2 so far. I think we do 3 more questions from this.
Okay, one thing I learned. This is funny when I was learning how to be on television. They said, well, if you watch the people eat, and I was doing more. Usually when you're doing cooking, you're on those morning TV shows, and you're at the end, and they all stand around and. They would take the tiniest amount, like this. Yeah. Because if you take a mouthful, you're like,
You could have told me that before.
They would put it record.
I just took massive, but they taste so good. Okay, 3 more questions, then we're going to do the tour, and then we're going to finish. Okay. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to pick which ones. Maybe from names we haven't Okay, here's a good one from Marsha Donosky.
Hi, Marcia.
Hi, Marsha. She says, have you ever considered moving to the countryside?
Is that Roman? That's my partner.
Marsha?
All he wants to really, I was like, all my partner wants to do is move to the countryside.
Okay.
I'm a city boy.
Yeah.
I like walking places. I don't like driving. I like being around. I like being able to go buy rice. I like being able to go buy oranges, wine, baguettes, and so forth. I do miss the countryside, the quiet, because Paris is a pretty loud city.
Absolutely.
And even when you're home, there's like, you're always surrounded. It's like anywhere, it's like New York. You're always surrounded by people, even when you're home. So I do, it's also nice to be in the country. It's beautiful, but I'm not moving there.
Yeah, I was going to say, this feels like a no, I'm not moving to the countryside anytime soon. Is that right? It's not going to happen?
I don't think so, but never say never.
True.
Especially on the internet, because people say, well, you said you would never move to the country, and now you're... Yeah.
I saw one a comment that popped up before, and there it is, Catherine Watt.
Hi, Catherine.
Another VIP of the book club. She says, David, I know you're in the editing stage of your next book. Any hints as to what it's about?
Yes. Well, if anybody is watching, Punch did a really great article about me. It's a cocktail website, drinking website by Brad Thomas Parsons, who's a spirits writer.
Is that linkable, or someone couldn't, or is it in a magazine?
Yeah.
So
No,
someone
it's
put the link
Punch.
in the comments. Someone put it in there for everyone else.
Just search Punch David Lebovitz, and he did a great interview with me, and it talks about it there. But we'll see when we do the little kitchen tour.
Hang on, David, you're just telling him to go somewhere else. Can't we tell him a little bit here?
Well, I said, continue, listen, patience, yeah. When we walk around the kitchen, I'll...
Okay. Sorry, I just got down that Punch got the scoop.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay. Kerry says, if you had to move to another apartment, will it be in the same arrondissement?
No. Because I'm actually sort of really into the 9th now.
The 9th?
Yeah. I think the 9th is so interesting. You walk in any direction and you're somewhere completely different.
True, because when I think of the 9th, I think more of the sort of Lafayette bit. But when it goes north towards Pigalle, it gets really different.
Yeah, it gets really different. Rue des Martyrs down near there. There's a lot of good restaurants there. And it's sort of a little calmer. Like the 11th can be a little rowdy, a lot of young people. Yeah. Especially at night, there's a lot of bars and so forth. So now that I'm getting older,
I guess if you find the right spot in the 9th between Pigalle, which can be kind of crazy, and the big boulevards.
Avenue Trudon I love that street. That's like my favorite street in Paris.
Okay, so that's where we can find you in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, I think one more question, and I'll pick a good one. These are all good questions, but I need to pick one. Let's see. There's someone asking if there are any rooftop farms in Paris, but that's not really about your book, is it?
No, but Laurie, she put a link to the Punch article.
Someone did? Oh, thanks, Laurie.
There are rooftop honey beehives.
That's true.
And I was talking to somebody who works in the bee industry, and I said, or honey industry, I said, well, isn't it kind of bad because, Paris is polluted and all the exhaust and so forth? She goes, no, it's actually, there's no pesticides in Paris. So the honey is actually quite pure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And someone told me, I don't know if it's true, that if you get hay fever and you eat the honey, local honey, that it can help you.
Yeah, well, they also say that if you have allergies, you should go work in a cheese shop. And I was talking to someone at a cheese shop, and they go, no, it's the opposite. He's like, I cough all the time.
Really? I've got a story and a little sort of hint of something to come on the Earful Tower that maybe you'll like to hear as well. I also know a guy in the honeybee business.
Okay.
And he, without giving too much away, he started to make honey wine or mead or...
Oh, it's called hydromiel, or it's the Chouchen in Brittany.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So he makes it, and
my partner hates that.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay, well, I won't invite him along for this plan. But I met with the guy, and he ages the wine in the catacombs, right?
Okay.
And he took me down there to show me the whole thing, and I was like, it's a shame it's underground because I couldn't do a live video, but that's something I've got to...
Well, you can have a flashlight.
Yeah, but I can't get the live internet connection. Because it would be so fun to take you guys down there live.
Sounds like a tour. Because you do tours.
I
right?
do sometimes do tours. You really have been listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
Which I should just add. I know a lot of people are here for David, but this this is part of a podcast where I do every week an episode with someone interesting like David, and basically similar to what you said about Sex and the City, where New York is a guest. Paris is the guest of my podcast. So if you guys listen to podcasts, go and subscribe. And we're going that last question. I'll give it to Alicia. It's not really about the book, David. But she says, do you grow your own herbs or herbs, as some Americans
Well, we used to, and people kept stealing them.
Really?
And I was like, I wanted to leave a sign like, if you want to take a few leaves, take a few leaves. So people were uprooting the whole thing or stealing the whole pot.
Right.
So we had to stop.
Well, there you go.
People, a lot of things get, anything that's not like nailed down here, you have to kind of, which is unfortunate. There is a whole thing by the city of Paris to plant more plants. They're encouraging people to plant more plants.
Sometimes it looks a little bit embarrassing when they've got the little, a little thing in the middle of a busy street that just all the dogs pee on it, basically. Yeah,
well, basically, in my opinion, what they should do is Paris should put in uniform planters everywhere,
right,
and take care of, and just put plants in, because, they'll get swiped, but at least it looks less helter-skelter.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the last question. Now we're going to take you guys to show you some things. I'm going to go around the long way.
And I'll stand here, and you can ask me questions about Oliver. No,
but you can't read
He doesn't smell funny. Oh.
The book is behind you to show as well. If anyone's so now I can see. I'm picking up the stabilizer with this on the bottom. So there's the book.
This here behind you.
Everybody should have read it by now, but that's it. L'appart, pronounce the T, as David mentioned in the podcast episode recently. The delights and disasters of making. You know what I liked about the book as well? That you put a lot of explanations of the French language and
I always wonder about that.
No, I loved it because I'm a language guy as well, and I was things like you said, the word disaster comes from this or whatever. Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Well, people don't realize a lot of English words are from French words. So this is the sink.
All right.
And unfortunately, you can see the other faucet, I guess you call it in English, finally broke, and it was a bad drama trying to get it fixed. It was like the whole renovation came back. This is about 2 months ago. So I had to buy this, and the other one used to be this big, and it was great. And this one, it doesn't quite work right, so my partner did this. It looks like it just had surgery. And it works okay, but it's not perfect. The problem is, and this is just exclusive for your viewers.
That's what we like.
Okay. The other contractor put the hole too far, so a regular faucet only reaches to here, which is right. So I can't get a regular faucet on this. So I had to find one that let me so it was very challenging. So anyhow, this is the sink, and I love it because it's big. I can fit a sheet pan in there.
Fit a what?
A sheet pan.
I thought you said
sheet
pan.
Hey, watch the language. But I'm a baker, so I'm using sheet pans, or plaque, as we say in French. We say in French. So I love my sink.
This was one of the top comments was, can we see the sink? Before. Everybody wanted to see it. Here, have a look at the sink, guys. That's what it looks like. And you said it's like what did you call it? A farm? No.
Well, people want like a French farmhouse sink, and those don't really exist anymore. You can't buy them except in America or England or in Australia, because people here don't put those sinks in their house like they used to. So it's very difficult to find like a big white sink.
Right.
And this is it. And I found it. If you read the book, you saw the story, and I remember going up to Lille with Romain and buying it, and it was. He kept talking. French people are they like to talk, and he kept talking to the guy. I was like, I gotta put the sink in the car. I gotta get the sink. So, because it was like a 1-year search. People don't realize how long it can take to find things.
Was it the sink that you were thinking? I know there was something you were thinking to buy in England and then bring over. It was the sink?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Shall we have a look at the? Someone wanted the spices.
The spices. Back up.
Okay. Well, okay, I just
How's the
damaged the
light?
kitchen.
Okay, yeah.
I just damaged the one thing that...
Okay.
Okay.
So I have 2 spice areas. One of them is here because I cook here a lot. So these are olive oils, local colza oil, different kinds of vinegars and so forth. But my spices are here. And it's kind of funny because I did a project with an American spice company. And I use these jars are great because they're labeled. So. But I labeled them on top.
Smart.
One day I finally got frustrated because I was like, so I got my OCD out.
You know what we should do, David? I got an idea. Is let's, because I can clip this and do it as a video by itself.
Okay.
Right? So let's restart, as in, I'm David Lebovitz, I'm going to show you my kitchen kind of thing.
Okay.
And then we'll just show exactly what we're going to show anyway.
Okay.
But I'll set it
Do I
up.
have to start again with this?
No, we don't. People can see the sink, or I can cut it together. But then that way, if people don't have time to watch this 1 hour thing, they can watch this little bit. So I'm going to stand with you for the start and do an introduction, but everyone's watching live knows what
do we
we're
need
doing.
more light? Or
Perhaps, I think so. Let's add some light.
So hit the top button on
Top.
the right.
Left, top, right?
Or left. Or the middle button.
I did both.
Left, middle, left. And you can, if you hold it, it'll go up.
Yeah, you're right.
Like magic.
Look at that. Okay, that's great. Okay. Yep, people are commenting. Thanks. Yeah, okay, so I'll just restart. Hang on.
Okay.
Okay.
Stand sideways.
Thanks up. So I'm just everyone at home, just ignore this little intro while we get. Okay. So you're here watching the Earful Tower. I'm here with David Lebovitz, who's about to show us through the kitchen that featured in L'appart.
Mm-hmm.
So what I figured maybe you could just show us some of the things that have been renovated, and we could start with the spices, perhaps.
Okay.
But tell me how important the kitchen is for someone like
Grab
you.
your camera. So these are different spices and so forth. And as I explained a few moments ago, I have these old spice jars that I refill. These are not like super old spices. But one day I went on an OCD thing and I put the label on top so I could see what they are. And as you can see, like local, so I don't even know, somebody was staying in my apartment and they bought dried shallots. Huh. But I have things like cinnamon sticks from Ceylon. This is Szechuan pepper a friend of mine, Anne Ma, gave to me. She knows I like to cook Chinese food.
Is that a good gift for someone like you, David? Something like a spice?
Well, speaking of gifts, an Iranian woman came up to me at a book event. And she goes, I have to give you some of this saffron from Iran. And it's the most amazing saffron. I remember I put a picture of it on Instagram and people from Iran were like, that is the best saffron. That's such a great gift. So, Iranian saffron.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. And I just went to Vietnam and I got this white pepper from Phuoc, an island. A friend of mine who's a vermouth maker, when I was there, he goes, make sure you get the white pepper. And white pepper sort of has a bad reputation. Everyone's like, oh, it smells funny. It's not black pepper. But the white pepper there is spicy and delicious. I have different kinds of pepper. This is from Cambodia. A friend of mine lives in Cambodia. This is from Detu in Paris. I buy a lot of spices in the Arab markets. These are juniper berries for when I pickle things.
That's amazing how many spices you go. What is that?
Cinnamon.
Yeah.
Carvey, which is caraway. And a lot of French people don't know what this is, unless you live in Alsace. They add it to things.
A lot of them look unopened, David. Are you sure they're not just there for show?
Well, I stock up because I'm cooking a lot, so... But over here, speaking of spices, there's more.
There you go, wow.
So you can see I have things like, people have given me these, like this is chili pepper salt. I have this coffee extract it's French made. It's actually quite good. If you smell it, really, it's like a concentrate. It smells like a concentrated cup of coffee.
Oh wow, yeah. What's your favorite spice?
I actually love allspice.
Okay.
And I like cardamom a lot too. But I do have a lot of chili peppers. I have chocolate from Mexico.
It's very international, your spice rack. It's like an Olympic,
I do a lot of
game spice rack.
Yeah, I mean this is my friend Bina Paradine, she gave me these spices. It's Bombay curry. She's an Indian cook here in France.
Right.
So I have different kinds of things. I have more spices here. I have badian, which is star anise.
And what? Someone's asking what you keep in all these cupboards up here.
Okay. Wow.
You don't have to
We're not
answer.
supposed to show all this. No, actually, I buy I have a lot of store, I store things. So, let's see. This one is glasses. And often when I go buy stuff at the flea markets, I like to go to flea markets, especially in the country. People are like, where do you put it all? Like I wrote about it in the book, I have these shelves on the top. And there's more stuff here, different glasses.
There you go, guys. This is David Lebovitz kitchen. And what shall we show this as well? That was mentioned in the book. The fridge is the big fridge that got a lot of airtime in the book. Bigger than any French fridge in a French house that you'll ever see, right? And on the this is the table.
Yes. This is where it was askew and it was fixed.
So yeah, so you can see sort of along that line.
Yeah.
And then so the whole thing had to be lifted up and moved.
Yeah. And that was probably the craziest story in the whole book to me, was being told it couldn't be moved.
Right.
And there was like this 2-week fight about moving it, and it was something that took basically 5 minutes to do. So anyhow,
crazy.
That's resolved.
Right. So let's go over and check out that bourbon that you mentioned before, I think,
Okay.
and then
This
I
is
think
where I keep my baking stuff as well, cookware. I actually have a thing for cutting boards, and I like to when I find them at flea markets. I
wow,
find them.
what a collection you've got.
Yeah, this one is. I was like, who would? This is huge. Like, who would make a cutting board that thick?
That's like a Viking cutting board.
Yeah.
Let's get a look at that. Oh my goodness, heavy as well.
Pretty heavy.
Could be a cricket bat from Australia. You know?
Anyway.
Wow.
So I like cutting boards a lot.
And
I
then
like tart pans.
and then this was the.
And this is left over from a party.
What was the thing that you mentioned before? Was it bourbon or something?
Bourbon. Well, I have a friend who lives in Paris. He's from Kentucky. He goes, "Why is bourbon so expensive here?" And I said, "Well, you can actually. I buy this, which is 18 euros, and it's good bourbon. It's not gourmet bourbon, but it's good bourbon. And someone said they don't use GMO corn in it, so. But I reassured him that I had two bottles of Knob Creek.
Knob Creek.
Yeah, which is good Kentucky bourbon.
Wow.
And a lot of French spirits are actually cured in bourbon barrels, because bourbon barrels can only be used once, and they have to sell them. So they sell them to French spirit companies, like cognac companies, and they ship them over and use them for French spirits.
So if you stand exactly in the right angle, I can get those horns on your head, Okay. Just kidding. Okay, I think we can sign off this video. I think we said it'd be about an hour, right? So
this is actually sort of somebody asked me about my next book. So this is a clue.
That's right.
To see, I like your readers. So I've been doing a lot of work with French spirits, checking things out. This is a gentian liquor. And what's interesting is they make it also non-alcoholic, from gentian roots that are 20 years old. And it's quite bitter.
So so I haven't had the luxury of reading this Punch article. Can you give me a bit more of an idea what we're talking about for this next book?
Well, it's about French drinks, French culture, surrounding drinks, all the different. What do these mean to the French people? To French people, what do they mean? Like, every bottle in France has a history. As you know, living here, you talked about the things that protect doors.
Yeah.
You're like, I never looked at them, and then when you look at them, you're like, oh. So, all of a sudden you have something like this, which is, you think it's a bottle, it's an aperitif called Bonal. Well, there's a key on it, because in the old days they had a big ad campaign that said it's the key to open up your appetite.
Oh, wow.
Which you couldn't say anymore for health reasons in France. There's a picture of a guy drinking it. But there was ads saying, drink this, and there was like boxers showing how they got all this energy from it, how it was revitalizing. It was made by a guy who was an orphan for the monks who produced chartreuse, which is this liquor, which is about 400 years old. It's the company's been around 400 years, and it's a group of monks.
From down near Grenoble somewhere, I think. Yeah. But do you always have such a big liquor cabinet, or is this research for...
Well, I've been amassing things for years. And I've been meeting great people. This fellow here, he's in Cognac, and he makes Sepia Amer, which is similar to Picon.
Right.
But Picon has changed, and it's not what it used to be.
Is this just leftovers from your 60th birthday, David?
No.
That's brilliant.
So I learned, he sent me a bottle of this to taste. He hasn't released it yet, or I think he just released it. So actually, if you want to try something really, if you like bitters, this is a wonderful one. You can only get it in France right now.
All right.
But it's from Audemus.
I'm going to just zoom in on that there.
Yeah.
Audemus Sepia.
And they make a pink, peppercorn gin that's great.
What's your favorite French drink?
My favorite
I know we're not meant to be doing favorites, but I'll rephrase the question, okay? If you'd just done a 1-hour book club interview with someone, and you're like, goodness me, I need a drink, and then you were never to have another alcoholic drink again after that, what would you end on?
I would say chartreuse.
Really?
Yeah.
And what, as a shot? How do you have it?
Ice cold in a cold glass. And I used to drink at room temperature until I was at chartreuse, and they said, oh no, you serve it cold. And the French, if you live in France, the French don't love cold drinks. But they said that's the way you taste it, because the sugar recedes and all the herbs come forward. And I tasted it, and it was really good.
So do you do the whole thing with the sugar and everything like that, or?
Oh no, that's absinthe.
That's
wrong.
Okay,
liquor.
Sorry.
No, chartreuse is just it's an herbal liquor.
Right, so you just need to chill it and put it in. He's opening it already. That's the sign that we're gonna wind up the video, and have some chartreuse. But shall we put it back to where we started to do a little sign off there? I reckon just over.
Sure.
And you guys are gonna have to be very quick if you want any last questions answered, because we're sending our farewells. I'm gonna bring over a chair.
Okay.
We'll sit down and do it. This time you can make the song.
Okay.
I think we're on camera. Someone from Algeria is ringing my phone.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what that means. So we're here, we're on camera. Good. So, in summary, you got to turn it for that.
Okay.
Looks good.
We're off to the side.
Let me just. Okay. There you go. And we're on.
Right.
So, in summary, what you guys have been watching has been David Lebovitz talking about his book L'appart, which is sitting right here behind me. And if for some reason you've been watching this and you haven't read the book, I hope this has inspired you to do it. But if you're in the book club, I assume that means that you already read the book, for which I say thank you.
And also, if you like the book, go to Amazon and leave a good review.
Always.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, guys.
Like for your podcast, if you like the podcast, leave a good review.
Well, I think the thing... Yeah, I think you're right. You can leave reviews on iTunes and stuff like that. It's always people like David, people like me, people who are doing things in Paris and abroad. It always helps us to leave a good review because then more people can find it. We can keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and it's nice to actually acknowledge. I do that.
And that's the thing, Dave. You're excellent at responding to comments on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, I think you really are. I went through your Instagram the other day. I was surprised to see that you respond to people, because a lot of people with more than 1,000 followers tend to just be like, eh.
Well, Sarah Jessica Parker responds to people.
Does she?
Yeah. And she loves my partner too.
Really?
She was at a party in New York, and I said I have to go meet her. So I said hello, and I introduced her to Roman, and she would not leave. Usually celebrities, the first thing they want to do is get away from you, and she would not leave.
maybe he was holding on to it.
No.
Oh, okay. Anyway, that has been the Earful Tower Book Club. Thank you, everybody who's joined in. As I've put in the description above, if you like this book club and you want to see it thrive, consider going on patreon.com/the Earful Tower, where for $5 a month, you'll get exactly the same thing, but you'll be helping it to thrive and survive. Check out David's site, sign up to his newsletter, buy his books, and keep an eye out for the new book. which is exciting.
Spring 2020 and make my cookies. The recipe's on my blog too.
Please, yes, guys, make those. Make what I've really loved for the rest of the month and for eternity. Make the recipe, make the food, and put pictures of it because you never know. David might just come and have a look at it. He's part of the group now. So thank you for being on the book club.
Thank you.
Thank you for daring, and I'll leave this not wobbly at all stool to sign off. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.